find a new town. And we chose that citation because this is what the pandemic done to us, because during lockdown, our life just froze, and we couldn't proceed with our casual things to do, and we just stayed at home with stress, without knowing what the future will look like. And now I will ask Piotr to start his presentation.
Yep. Hello, good morning. Hello, everyone. I will start with a little introduction to the situation in Krakow and how the pandemic shaped current situation of city life. Krakow, like other European metropolis, is a place full of university students, international tourists, and seasonal workers who massively contribute to city budget and create unique local culture. When the coronavirus exploded, it realigned city life and made some of the city dwellers to leave the city in order to either work or study from home. During the past year, similar to other tourist hubs of Europe, Krakow became essentially a ghost town for a couple of months, with an exception of the last summer, when internal tourism was actually booming, but it only lasted for a couple of months, and it wasn't comparable to like summer of 2019 or 2018, obviously. COVID pandemic unfortunately brought out various problems of the city, such as lack of affordable housing, poor urban planning, and lack of people-friendly infrastructure, and only accelerated the effect of suburbanization, which is by no means helpful to Krakow's current situation. We truly believe that our local authorities learned something from this tragic period and will try to transform Krakow to a more livable place. Krakow is actually a really diverse place, and many boroughs differ from each other, and life during the pandemic may be better in some places with with higher amount of greenery or public spaces open for everyone. But overall, Krakow became less habitable during these past months. So now now Philip will try to tell you some stories from the perspective of a local musician.
Okay, so street performance and pandemic in Krakow, and I would like to share my story because I'm a street performer, and this is a position quite different when you're on the street, because you are there and you can observe people, which is what I like to do. I like to do it in a concept of plein air, when we just have a time to appreciate our surroundings in a city and watch other people proceed with their everyday life. But it's a little bit a different situation because street musicians are active because they want to interact with people. And it's a little bit unusual during pandemic because when everyone wanted to social distance and just stay away from them, from each other, and everyone just reduce their activity in urban space, it might sound a little bit unusual to just go and play on the street, but we decided to, with my friends, to do that and see what happens. And this is a picture. We played on the streets near Barbakan in the old town in Krakow. Last summer, when the government lifted off some COVID restrictions and we could stay outside without masks, and there were some tourists, but much less than in the previous year before the pandemic. But we could perform on the streets, and this is my story about watching other people and interacting with them. So what was the biggest issue of it? Because it was the lack of social interaction. Because when you street is this kind of interesting place in a city where everyone just makes up all different classes, social status. You can see someone wealthy, someone who is successful, crossing the street, while there is someone homeless lying there and just living on the streets. And I talked with other veterans of street performance, and they told me that social interactions definitely changed. There were much less people, but the kind of the interactions were different because people seem to crave to meet someone else, to forget for a while, for a moment about the pandemic, about everything, that we have to stay socially distanced, that we have to remember that there is a threat to our health. And what about it was a little bit unusual, because when they interacted with us, it felt like they were our friends, but that we just met. And it was quite unusual thing to do, and I wanted to show you the place where we were playing. The place was on Planty Krakowskie near Barbakan. This is you can see with a red dot in the upper corner of this map, and I wanted to combine this story a little bit with the first lecture of Professor Mach about the space and who takes care of it, because there are some rules that you cannot just go to the streets and play and perform. You have to make some previous preparation in a town hall. You have to make an agreement with town hall. You have to perform before the commission that will accept you or not, if you can play there. And only there you will be able to just go on the streets and perform. And there you will have this area where you can stay, where you can perform. And this is how town hall takes care about this place. And it's a little bit tricky for me, because what do we mean when we tell you a space and the place? Because the place was this area where we can stand, where we could perform, but the space around us was ours for a while, because we were just performing there. And I wanted to mention some interesting fact that during the pandemic, our healthcare system struggled, but the other institutions of control were working just fine. And as you can see, we needed a contract to show almost every day, to a policeman that we can play there. And it's why there are so many restrictions, because this area is a culture park, old town, and there are a set of rules that protect it and makes for other tourists to just enjoy the old town, and that it should be in some order. So this is my story about social interactions during pandemic from the perspective of a street performer.
Good morning. Now I will tell you really briefly about Gdańsk, which is my hometown. I couldn't stay in Krakow during the pandemic, and that's why I had to come back to the city of Amber. Gdańsk is one of the most touristic cities in Poland. It is known for its rich history, characteristic symbols, such as, for example, amber, but also architecture. The most important monuments in Gdańsk are located in the main town. Next slide, please. Such as, for example, main town hall, Arches Court, or Uphagen House, and of course the Old Town. This is where most tourists go. Can you show the next slide? Here is the map of the main city, and The narrow streets are a charm, but also a curse to the older part of the city. Even outside of the tourist season, there were a lot of people on the streets, which was definite inconvenience for the residents. The noise and crowds contributed to the negative perception of urban space by residents. There were moments of peace and quiet only in the early morning hours when the city was just waking up to life. However, the severe lockdowns that took place in Poland since March last year brought a new perspective. The city was rapidly deserted. Streets that were previously only empty before 7 a.m. are now also empty during the afternoon hours. For many people, it was a time that allowed them to look again at Gdańsk urban spaces. People who had no contact with the main town on daily basis and only associated it with crowds of tourists could look at the urban space anew. For many people, it was an interesting experience because they were not used to such a view of the city and they didn't even remember the last time they saw the city in such empty state. I had my own personal experiences with this area of Gdańsk because I was working in one of the main amber galleries in the main town. It was an extremely great occasion to observe so-called urban tissue because we could see a lot of different people coming to our city and interacting with each other. So, and we had an unusual occasion to compare the look of the city in the early morning hours and the night hours because our shifts always often started at 7 a.m. or before 7 a.m. and ended at 9 p.m. So to conclude, the narrow streets that were before crowded before the pandemic, now in pandemic, in a sense, regained their own original charm. Of course, the example of deserted Gdańsk is not the only one that prompts us to rethink the city space. Such case could be spotted all around the world, mostly in touristic places. This issue of empty urban space was also raised during one of the first lectures, of course. However, it can be said that the frequency with which this issue arises strongly prompts reflection and perhaps a redefinition of urban space. Although tourists have slowly returned to the streets of our city, the specter of empty streets is present and accompanying more than one person heading towards the main city. Thank you.
So thank you. So we wanted to share our stories because if you happen to be in our cities, these are a little bit different aspects of this town. You will be able to see this city a little bit differently. You can go a little bit deeper, and we wanted to pass on to you via those stories some experiences that happened in our cities, and we hope that it will make it for you a little bit easier to understand what it's like to live in our cities. And I wanted to conclude it in this kind of way that we in Europe, in the European Union, we can integrate, but we also with the respect of our diversity. And we can integrate better if we will understand ourselves. And we think that the stories, which are a part of intangible heritage, are one of the best things to pass on to the other people, to tell, to make them understand us a little bit better, and maybe they will tell us about something about themselves, and in that way we will be able to integrate and to cooperate in the future to prevent some disasters or just get up after the pandemic. So thank you very much. That was our presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Filip. Thank you, Olga, and thank you, Piotr. It is really interesting that you could relate to this aspect of identity creation, but also related to tourism. And if I may ask for a brief comment, Professor Paweł Kubicki.
Hello. It's really interesting presentation, especially because of this presentation is from below, from everyday urbanism. If we talk about city problems, we often forget about this perspective from below. Many analyses of cities, especially in the pandemic time, is made by perspective from top-down, an expert perspective. So this is very interesting, and this your perspective is very interesting. Both cities, Kraków and Gdańsk, have a serious problem with tourism. In fact, over-tourism, touristification. And it's a paradox that pandemic time changed this situation. Thanks to pandemic, inhabitants could reclaim the city centers, especially in Kraków and probably in Gdańsk also. So this my short question: do you think that this reclaim, this the situation that inhabitants reclaims the city centers, reclaims main markets and other symbolic spaces in Kraków or in Gdańsk, this changed situation in the city and in city centers. And we, for a long time, we will observe, come back to social life, everyday social life in the city centers, and also changing attitudes to symbolic space in Kraków and Gdańsk. What do you think about it?
Well, when we thought about our stories, we mainly thought about what the word city means, and we are not talking only about the urban space, but that the spaces makes only sense with the people. And during lockdown, when everyone was at homes or somewhere else, those spaces just froze, and because they froze, there was a lack of social interactions. Because, for example, the marketplace, without any other people there are no social interactions, there are no buying, no bargaining, there is no life in them. And we think that the stories will make a little bit those places alive and make them a little bit more easy to understand what it's like to be there every day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think that it gave another perspective on the, because in Gdańsk there was a conflict between residents and workers in touristic places. Residents wanted to regain for their own the peace and the quiet of the main city. However, the pandemic gave them different perspective, because when the city was empty, when was it was a ghost town, they realized that the people, that the tourists made the atmosphere of the city. So maybe there is another way to find such in a way, a compromise between desires of both parties, if I may say this. So I think after all, the pandemic also, at least in Gdańsk, had positive results on this discourse of regaining the symbolic, the atmosphere of the city.
Okay, thank you.
We also realized that we are quite dependable on tourists, because much of the town income is based on touristification and other tourists being here and leaving money, buying and visiting our city. And this is a little bit a paradox, because we wanted to regain our space as a citizens and just be there, but without tourists, to make our own place. But we realized that we also, some of the businesses to live here depends on tourists, and it's a quite important thing. And this is what pandemic showed us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay. Ms. Lucia, I think. Are you ready?
Professor Gunning.
Professor Gunning.
Good
Okay.
morning.
From
I'm sorry.
I
joined late and I will have to leave early. I'm afraid because we're traveling from London to L'Aquila, so so I will have to leave at some point. But so I'm from L'Aquila. I'm sorry I didn't hear all of your presentation, but from the comments I got some points. I haven't been to L'Aquila for the last 9 months, but I follow very closely what the comments and unhappiness of people are about it. So I think L'Aquila is now at a crossroads between becoming a tourist town that, as you say, they need the money from the tourists to survive, for the shops to work, for the economy to be viable. But the other alternative, which really hasn't been implemented, is to make it a livable town for its own citizens. So have policies that encourage people to use the town, to go to the center, to go and walk and so on. And I hear, and I haven't arrived yet, so I haven't seen the situation, but I hear that, for an example, now they've just made the entire center of the town a pedestrian area, but they haven't given people the possibility to park. So people are not going to the center, so shopkeepers are desperate, and residents are desperate, and everybody is unhappy. So I wanted to know what your point of view is from that. Have you thought about the possibility of what is the other side to just encouraging the tourists? What could be done for the people of L'Aquila to make it a more viable town?
Or to Krakow. Lucia, they were talking about Krakow. That is the same problem.
I'm so sorry. Then I just wasted everybody's time.
No, but the question is perfect.
Sorry.
The question is perfect also for
I guess it's relevant to both. It's an issue. I mean, yeah, for L'Aquila is a big issue, but many towns have this problem and have approached it, and I'd say resolved it in some way. But
okay. Thank you very
exactly.
much.
It's a very serious problem for all historical city and town in Europe. Justification over tourism. It's not a Krakow and Gdańsk.
Okay, so let's. I would like to encourage you to make some closing comments to the Krakow case, and we will we will be discussing what Professor Gunning has just mentioned, because the dynamics between tourism and the rights or the laws and the liberties and the expectations of the inhabitants. This is something that always creates an axis for the discussion or debate, if there are any debates. And as we all know, it's very challenging to conduct serious, inclusive debates where some things could be discussed that are later on implemented. But I'm sure this would be one of the main issues that we would be coming back to in the presentations that we will have right now. So any last word from Olga, Filip, Paweł, or anyone, just to close the Krakow topic so that we stick to the time? And I have this duty to try to keep to timing today. So please excuse me for being such a rude leader or chair. Any closing remarks? Any closing words?
If we want, I can say only that how Paola and Lucia know. I recently wrote a brief paper that regard the opportunity of L'Aquila to reinventing itself after the COVID, but also after the earthquake. So I think that how to say that you speak later about the difference of this moment, because 1 year ago, 2 years ago, we speak or we read about the difference touristification or gentrification. Now find a different line between this, because L'Aquila has not so really problem of gentrification, but yes, just a little problem of touristification before COVID, but after the earthquake. Now we are thinking in another way, because we have to think in which way don't transform L'Aquila in a tourist city, but to rediscover in his quality, in his map, in his urban structure, in which way to give the life, to remember also historical tradition, to don't transform in a new Pompeii or something similar, a tourist city, but give the people who live there his story, his way, different way also, but to give opportunity. So I think that this is the theme, the subject where I speak along for a long time. So it was I know a little about Cracovia because I studied this subject 2 years ago, with a completely different point of view. Studying about gentrification, touristification, Praga, Siviglia, Napoli, Salerno, Genoa, and so on. Now you have to compare. Okay, thank you for your work. Very interesting.
Thank you very much, Professor Sirana. Now, I think that also thank you for bringing up the concept of reinvention, because what seems to be a very fascinating topic is also that after the pandemics, once it finally finishes, we are at the stage of reinventing ourselves as communities, as cities, but also as individuals in a way. So this is quite an immersive process. Thank you very much for this. And I would like to ask Dr. Jana Pecznikova to take place now and to introduce the students to and to make room or give the mic to the students of Bańska Bystrica. Thank you. Thanks a lot for all the comments to the Krakow issue and for the presentation. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Many thanks. It was very nice and very well prepared. So now we are going to move to a little bit different topic, because in my team we were focused on urban culture landscape. That's my specialization, we can say. I will just briefly explain that in our team we prepared several different outcomes. I uploaded them to the web page, so now you can really find it and open it and see what we were working on. It was linked with the city. It means first the event was date with your city in different cities where my students were. They made some just like a short story of cities. Then visual pollution, it was the third day. And fourth day, it was about culture and historical city. First presentation was not about Bańska Bystrica, but unfortunately my student has some health troubles, so she cannot present today. But that may be a change for us to present you Bańska Bystrica. So our presentation is going to be on culture and historical city, what challenges we have, how we deal with our culture, with our history. So it will be just, I think, very nice excursion to our city. So I would like to ask Wojtek Hön, please, Wojtek, if you can turn on your camera and if you can share your screen.
Yes, hello. My name is Wojtek Hön, and we prepared a presentation of the city we live in, Bańska Bystrica. So I would like to share now my screen. I hope I will manage it. Please tell me if you see the screen.
Yes, yes,
you can see. Okay, so as I mentioned, we prepared a presentation of Banská Bystrica, and we would like to show you two phases of Banská Bystrica, the historical phase and the cultural. So short content. Banská Bystrica is a modern city, and also it is one of the oldest cities in Slovakia. About 1,000 inhabitants live in Banská Bystrica and the surrounding areas. It is also the 6th largest city in Slovakia and the largest in the self-governing region. In Banská Bystrica is also the Matej Bel University settled, which provides a wide range of study programs, especially in economics, law, pedagogy, international relations, and humanities. As I've mentioned, we would like to show you two phases of our city, the historical and cultural. So what is the historical city? What is the historical phase of our city? It is connected with active human settlements that are strongly conditioned by physical structure from the past and representing the evolution of place. Banská Bystrica is one of the most famous mining cities in Slovakia. Also, the adjective Banská means mining, so we could translate Banská into mining, and Bystrica is a small stream flowing through our city. It belonged to the association of 7 mining towns founded in 1388. Copper and silver was distributed to other countries from the 14th and 16th century, also to cities as Venice and Damascus. The center where products were made from copper and silver was called Mediny Hamor, or we could translate it into copper hammer. So if you see the map of Slovakia, you can see that Banská Bystrica is right in the middle of our nation, and it is surrounded by some mountains. It is surrounded by 3 mountains, the Great Fatra, Low Tatras, and the Slovak Ore Mountains. 2 of these mountains are also in the Slovak flag, the Great Fatra and Low Tatras. So if we see our flag, you can see that in the emblem of our flag, there are 3 small bulks, and the bulks represent the 3 mountains, the Tatra, Fatra, and Matra. Mountains and metals. Gold, silver, and copper were found in these mountains. These metals were processed at high temperature in furnaces. Wood was needed for the production of precious metals. This was mined in the surrounding mountains and transported along streams and rivers. We prepared a short video of how the wood was transported. So hopefully it will work. And please tell me if the sound also, if you also can see the sound, can hear the sound. I'm sorry, I have to start it this way. Okay.
We cannot hear the sound. Sorry.
You cannot hear the sound?
No.
Wojtek, I think when you share the screen in the first play, you have to click this button that tells you that you allow the sound.
Okay, I will try.
Yeah, please, because this is something that when you share the screen, then there is this question: do you want to share the sound
yes.
too? Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
So once more.
Yes.
I will slide the video, so. so just a small fun fact, this channel is still working. It's naturally made channel, and this is how the wood was transported. I'm sorry. So let's continue. So Jan Turzo, an Upper Palatine of Hungary, and the German merchant Jakub Fugger formed the Turzo-Fugger Trading Company in Banska Bystrica. So, cultural memory. History is also part of city's identity. Cultural memory is part of the topographic self-articulation. And socialism, this part of cultural memory of our city was not accepted. The emphasis was on ideology and folk culture. Until now, more than 30 years after the Gentle Revolution, activities are underway to save this part of cultural heritage. So unfortunately, this is also how our city looks like. We've got also prettier parts of our city, but as you can see, the post-communism architecture is still present. I already mentioned Medini Hammer, or the mining copper hammer, sorry. It was the Banska Bystrica Media Company, the first pan-European company founded by the Fugger family from Augsburg and the Turzo family from Slovakia, to intervene in world history by producing copper ore, which spread all over the world. It worked continuously for almost 500 years. In its peak days, it accounted for 40% of all copper ore production in the world. Copper hammer is the last remnant of the medieval and modern industrial zone of the city, which was built along the stream of Bystrica. Another fun fact, the Turzo and Fugger Company were the first in the world to provide healthcare and pensions. There are already some discussions on saving Medini Hammer present. At the time of the development of mining, smelters were built in and around the town. Banska Bystrica was also a center of fights against Nazism during the Second World War in Slovakia. The Museum of the Slovak National Uprising was built in 1969 to commemorate the event. A Slovak National Uprising started on the 29th of August in 1944 as a Slovak fight against the German army Wehrmacht. So you can see in the background the museum. Cultural city, the cultural phase of the city includes verbal, visual, physical aspects of human existence, creates space for multi-dimensional and dynamic development of place, linked with identity, traditions, crafts, art, and events. The city organizes interesting events such as concerts, public discussions, festivals, and many others. Among the natural possibilities of cultural activities in Banska Bystrica, we can include cycling routes and opportunities for swimming in aquaparks located in the city. Every year in September, the city organizes an event called Radvan Fair. Radvan is a part of our city with traditional arts and crafts. It takes place on the main square, which is, by the way, also called the square of the Slovak National Uprising. It takes place since 1657, but in 2020 it was not realized for the first time because of the coronavirus. Urban cultural landscape of Banska Bystrica is very diverse. The landscape is expressing the relationship between inhabitants and the city. Based on this, Banska Bystrica provides inhabitants with opportunities to satisfy their work, social, culture, sports, and health and technological or administrative needs. The city provides inhabitants with opportunities in both the public and private spheres. We would like to show you more about Banska Bystrica, and in the end, we prepared a video of Banska Bystrica. I made this video with my friend back when we were around 13 years old, so I would like you to know that this video also looks like that. It is an amateur video. I don't expect you to catch the content since it is in Slovak, but I'll leave the sound on so you don't have to look at bare pictures. Once again, I have to do it this way. I will also shift it, don't worry. This is the main square, but it's not really visible.
História Banskej Bystrice sa datuje od čias, keď sa v tejto oblasti začala ťažba zlata, ktoré sa skladá z námestia a z priláhlych hlavných ulic. Poďme sa na to spolu pozrieť. Mesianská bašta sa nachádza v areáli pamätníka SMP, postavená pred rokom 1608. Bola súčasťou mestského opevnenia. V jej blízkosti sa nachádzal i horný most, ktorý spájal mesto s tedajším
This
horským
building was once part of our ramparts in our city.
mestím a hornými lúkami. Prichádzala založeniu mesta.
Main church.
Funkciou mestského hradu bolo chrániť výnosy z ťažby drahých kovov, najmä z medí a striebra a kráľovského. Okolo farského kostola postavili tu ďalšie budovy patriace samospráve banských miest. Do mestského hradu počase včlenili aj mestskú radnicu. V druhej tretine 16. storočia prešla viacerými stavebnými úpravami, ktoré jej vtlačili dnešný ráz. V roku 1546 ju podstatne rozširoval Henry Kindlinger, ktorý bol od roku 1523 členom mestskej rady a v roku 1528 aj richtárom mesta. V dome spolu s ním žil príbuzný Max Kindlinger a tiež kaplnky svätého Ondreja a tela Kristovho a na roku 1480 kaplnku svätého Jana Krstiteľa. Aj bočnú loď na severnej strane prestavali v roku 1478 na kaplnku a zasvetili ju svätej Barbore, patronke
And some funny end, I will explain later.
A ako sa cítite, keď sú tu aj dobrí bežci?
Sú tu chalani, ktorí sa venujú maratónom po Slovensku a ja si to prídem v rámci mojej prípravy, v rámci mojej kondičnej prípravy. Len sa proste porovnať časy, aký by som dal a proste zvedám.
Okay, so basically that's it. During our filming, a marathon took place in Banska Bystrica and it started on the main square of our city. So we included it in this video. I think it comprised some interesting buildings of our city. So that's why we decided to show it to you. So basically this is the end, and I would like to thank you for your attention. I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you very much, Wojtek. And it's always really interesting to have a look at diverse aspects of even small towns or smaller towns such as Banska Bystrica. And I'm personally grateful for you to explain what Bystrica means in terms of defining the meaning of Bańska as a settlement. Okay. Could I ask for some comments of our experts now, please?
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting presentation about beautiful city Bańska Bystrica. In fact, Bańska Bystrica is a very Central European city with full of multicultural heritage, multicultural memories, because of specific history of this region, constant changing of borders, cues that in the city space is very diverse about heritage, about memories. Also, this specific of Bańska Bystrica is also industrial heritage, especially in Khomas, difficult heritage because of post-socialist heritage. We have the same problem in Poland, how to perceive, how to evaluate post-socialist heritage in Polish cities. The case of Nowa Huta, for example, in Krakow. So Bańska Bystrica is a really interesting case for study of cities' memories and cities' heritage. I have one question to you about symbolic space in Bańska Bystrica. There is the symbolic conflict about city space, about difficult heritage. I mean, I think, especially I think about the statue on the main market in Bańska Bystrica. There's a symbolic conflict about city space, especially about the statue on the main market. This statue is dedicated Red Army, yeah?
Yes, you are right. I will maybe say that. But it's a part of our memory, as you mentioned. So that's something what somebody maybe do not expect on the main square, because our main square looks like it was inspired by Italian style. So it was built under the influence and also built by Italian architects. But there is a statue that is quite Sovietic, let's say, and also the shape is not very. But yeah, that's part of memory. So it's a question. We did not include it. Only Wojtek mentioned that a part of our city was built in this time, and it still looks not very well. I mean, like, even it's part of our memory once again. So I don't want to repeat. Maybe if Wojtek wants to say something, I will allow him. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think you said it all. I think we still have to fight against the post-socialist architecture, but we cannot hide it. It's still present, and as I mentioned already, we also have prettier parts. But this is the heritage of post-socialism countries.
Yeah. Okay. There's any question to this presentation? Paola? Paola, are you mute?
I'm mute. I think that in your, let's say, your promenade that was related with symbols and cultures and evolution of the history of Bańska Bystrica, I have a curiosity because I've seen since beginning of 90s so many developments in that part of the Europe that is regarding the exploitation of a mass tourism. I mean, Krakow and Prague Budapest are probably the best examples in that. But what about Bańska Bystrica? Are you thinking that, you have to protect your memory from it in the sense that they are not becoming stereotypes as it happens everywhere? But to keep, let's say, a memory, in the same way allowing a sort of development or transformation of the city in a more contemporary way. I don't know if you never thought about that. Wojtek, this question is for you as a young Slovak.
You are right. I was never thinking about it, but I think the fight of remaining our face is still present. So yes, I think we have to maintain our history, our face, our cultural and historical heritage. Yes, basically. That's my answer.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Paola, this question is difficult not for Wojtek, but for all of us to answer you. It's a trend. I mean, like, this development and uncontrollable. I mean, like, there is no control. It's just growing. The cities are growing. So we just want to keep our memory alive. But the question is, what is our memory composed of? So that was the presentation about. We wanted to show you two different parts, important parts of our memory. It's a mining tradition, and then it's a kind of, let's say, socialist city or post-socialist city, and of course connected with the Second World War, because we still remember everything is named after the Slovak national uprising, the event that happened. So we are connected with these events, and it's not easy to do something with urban landscape when everything is connected with these two topics. Only these two appears. And so that's what we wanted to show you, and I know that you never heard about Banska, so for the first time you had such experience. And thank you, Wojtek, for having such a really lots of facts, and you really presented historical part and culture part of our city. And now it's maybe Professor Gunning, or not, asking? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the mining tradition. I didn't get from the presentation, but because my internet connection is not fantastic, whether this is reinvented and reused as part of the modern interpretation of the city, so is part of today's life, or is just a memory that gets told and people know that it's there in the background but doesn't have a function. So in other words, for an example, the big building that was shown, does it have a function today? Has it been reused? Has it been reincorporated into everyday's life in town? This is what I wanted to know. Thank you.
As I mentioned in the presentation, there are some discussions on saving the copper hammer, but no, it's not functioning at the time. Well, basically, in none of the towns I mentioned, the seven towns which were members of the foundation of the association, sorry, the mining towns are not working. None of them currently work. It's just a memory.
Just
yes.
And something just came to my mind. So last year I got funding for a project, but another person who got the same funding was working with a mining town in Scotland, I think, or in Wales, I can't remember. And what she did, she's an artist. She used the material from the mine to make paint. You can Google it, UCL and paint production, innovation and enterprise. If you want, I'll tell you. And she came up with a new paint product that is the expression of the past of this town, so that they can use this past to have some kind of income, and is as well an expression of their heritage. And I thought that was an incredible project. So, you know, it's something that could be done there as well.
Yeah, thank you very much for suggestion. We will look for
I'll
it.
see if I find it, I'll send you the link. I'll look for it
Yes.
now.
Thank you. Thank you, Wojtek. I think we can close Slovak session maybe and go to Spain. What do you think, Lucia? Okay, so maybe Jana, now it's your turn to. You are muted. We cannot hear you, Jana. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Well, from our side, from the Delft University, we asked Sofia, our student, to make walking tours around the town where she is. She's not in Bilbao, and to identify spaces and landscapes related to the topics of the lectures that we had, and to make some personal reflections linked to these topics. With this material, she worked on different maps of identification, with information, with some photos and whatever. With this material, she worked on organizing this material in what we have called an atlas of perception of cultural heritage. And this result is what Sofia will present. So Sofia, I give you the floor and thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Hi, good morning, everyone. Well, I'm a PhD candidate of the University of Deusto, and also I'm working in a wine tourism department in Albella di Regua. That is the case study that I'm going to bring to us. And also my thesis is about cultural participation and the impact that it has to rural development. So we were talking about cities all the time, and I want to bring us also a perspective of a smaller territory, and I think it will be interesting to discuss. So I'm going to share the presentation. Just let me know if you can see it. Okay, let me check it. Can you see the presentation? Can somebody tell me if you can properly see it?
Yes,
okay,
Sofia.
thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about Albella di Regua, as I told you before. It's a small village. Well, not as small as you can imagine, because it's around 3,000 inhabitants, so it's not a small village as well. And it's in the north of Spain, in La Rioja, a region well known for the wine. And I'm going to start with the first part of that was the memory and heritage. We were talking about Albelda as a place with a huge past legacy related to medieval history. In the 10th century, we had the San Martin Monastery, and more than 2,000, no, it would be so much, script monks were living there until it collapsed in the 17th century. Nevertheless, it was one of the most important medieval cultural centers of Spain in its peak moment. And nowadays, a local association is trying to recover the rooms of the scriptorium, which is the place that we can see in the photo. And they were writing in there, so it's like the office that they have, we can call it that way. And the winery in which I'm working now, Vinícola Real, has a strong commitment to teach this story to our visitors and to give financial support to its conservation. In fact, our main wine is called 200 Monjes to commemorate that. So once I briefly contextualize you, I'm going to note down a list of interesting places that I found in the street, and I signalize in this map. So in the first part, I'm going to just summarize a bit, because if not, it would be here forever, you know. So the first one is the Colegio Municipal San Prudencio, and this school has the name of the main festivity of the village, and also is the name of a saint. So which relates the significance that religion still has in the place, no? Calle Gomesano is another important street because it has the name of Gomesano, which is the name of one of the main script monks who were living in San Martin de Albelda more than 1,000 years ago. You know, he wrote a copy of a codex for Godesfolk, a French bishop who also is considered as the first official foreign pilgrim of El Camino de Santiago. Thanks to this monk who noted down as a result of documented process, you know. And also we have a square that is called Plaza de Javier Cámara, and this square is dedicated to one of the main characters we have in the village now. He's a great comedian, actor, and who takes us to the present moment. Also, we have another important thing and interesting, that is Camino de la Mora Blanca. This refers to the time in which Albelda was conquered by Arabs. In fact, the name of the village comes from Arabic, a word that is Albaida, which means the white one. Also, we have another square that is called Plaza San Martin, sharing the name. It's the same name that we have in the old monastery, and also the name that has the new church. And Calle Monasterio de Yuso, and this street has the name of other important monastery of La Rioja, and also World Heritage as the cradle of both Castilian and Basque languages. In the whole, I think I feel well represented by these names, and I think most of the people do. But there are some little aspects that could be seen as racist, you know, as for example, the name of La Mora Blanca, because Mora means like niga, you know, it's like it could be bad significance. So it's not like the best word to put in the name of a street or something like that, you know. And also, I feel like the lack of female presence in the street. Okay, when we talk about landscapes, and for this exercise, I focus on the few little pieces of mural art that you can find in the village, which symbolize 3 different perspectives. One, an identity sign to show where to buy fresh food. 2, a memorial painting dedicated to agriculture workers which is the main profession in the place. And 3, a huge mural art located in the winery in which I'm working now, and which represents leisure and well-being. And that was painted by the local artist called Luis Burgos, whose personal gallery is in the heart of the wine cellar as well. One of the most important links between our landscapes and expressions is rooted in work and leisure, in the products that are made by working hard in the countryside and the pleasure that it brings to all of us when we are able to taste its results with our beloved. Even these cultural representations are not numerous around Albelda de Iregua, the truth is that every single inhabitant can feel itself represented by what you can find in the streets and as art representations, we can say. Maybe personally, I think that my identity is not fully stand for the big painting that welcome us once we reach the winery. But that is because of due to my present moment in which we are in a peak of work, because tourism is again here. So fortunately we can work and I don't really have leisure time now. And this showed me how relevant your inner timeline is to reinterpret your external environment. Well, talking about tourism and leisure, specifically, we can see the tenant now, okay? Because we are going to talk about the infrastructures that we have there. And as we can see, sometimes the buildings more rooted to local identity are out of the storytelling process in terms of conservation. It could happen for a lack of money or for the necessity of include new activities in the same space. In this case, the issue is the lack of financial support. The places of Albelda de Iregua that we want to preserve, its meanings are like the scriptorium, as I told you before, that was like that in the past, as you can see in the left part, in the top part. It was the scriptorium of San Martin Monastery, the last vestige of a crowning moment of our medieval story. And nowadays, a local association is trying to fight to maintain the story of the village and is working to research and to regenerate the only structure that remains of that period. Another important building is Seminario Los Frailes, a Jesuit boarding school made by the architect Jesus del Álamo in 1951, now in ruins, and recently built by the head of the Vinícola Real Winery with the idea of avoiding its disappearance. As the wine cellar is linked to this goal, the tourism, which is not so huge in this part of the region, as you can imagine, is an essential part of the commitment of preservation of the heritage, in this case. And also it brings us new insights related to wine sector, which is the main industry of La Rioja as a whole, but not the main one of Albelda de Iregua, because we are famous, almost famous, we can say that word because we are not like that, for the fruit sector in a whole, not only for the wine sector, which is not like our main goal, And also we were talking to sum up, I'm going to just talk about the catastrophes and the pandemic situation as it's supposed to be told in here. We can see that San Martin Monastery was collapsed in 1683. And the Australia's boarding school was abandoned in 1975. What happens until then? Robberies, vandalism, destruction. Time has passed and the spaces are becoming more and more vulnerable. Our donors are the City Hall, local associations, which are not so much, and Vinícola Real Winery, and you can imagine that this is not enough to do what we wanted to do. The pandemic situation also is not the best moment at all, because with the arrival of COVID-19, nature has taken the reins in plenty of different ways. And more volunteer work was needed to clear everything. Again, because of the lack of a specific financial support for these kind of actions, of preserve both buildings. And another important point is the change of meanings, because the two buildings were a sign of cultural power and knowledge in the past, and now we can see them as an emptiness symbol, which still has a powerful vindication level reminder. And the future, we still don't know. So I'm going to stop in here because I don't really have more, and thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I didn't know about this town, so for me was like when I saw the presentation was like, whoa, this is interesting. Anyone a question for Sophia? Want to comment something?
Can I?
Yeah, of course.
It's really interesting presentation, and also it's a very interesting case study how to create identity of place, identity of a town or cities according to heritage of food, because it's very important in creating of regional identity on the heritage of food. I think that it's also connected with an idea of a slow city, very popular idea how to prevent a serious problem of small town and small city, because small town and small city have a serious problem with escape of inhabitants to big cities because of course the lack of a good job and etc. So the idea of slow city is a very good idea how to stimulate a local industry, local market. But it's also my question. But there is also a problem of mono-industrial tourism. Do you see this problem that, especially in pandemic time, there's a problem if the town are addicted for just only one branch of tourism? In pandemic time, there's a serious problem for all industry in the cities. Do you see this problem in your case studies?
Yeah, of course, we are noticed it down because it's true that we only have that kind of tourist there. So we have the wine tourist, and it's not the main one because we have Aro, which is the other place of La Rioja, and it's like the main capital of the wine. So we can't compete with it. So in this case, we are rooted to our historic legacy, trying to recover our story, and we are trying to open that tourist that way. So trying to do a cultural tourism strategy that is not linked to just wine tourism as well. But it's not as easy, because you need like the implication of a lot of cultural agents. It's not as easy because they all want to do things like in a different way. And it's fine because it will be like diversity and it will be nice. But sometimes it's not as easy as you can imagine.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Okay. Thank you very much, Sophia. Was very, very interesting. We can move on to Paola's team from Italy.
Yes, of course. Patrizia, would you like to, do you prefer to introduce the team, or I'm doing?
Yes. In the presentation of our students, we show not only the cultural heritage of L'Aquila, important we seen in yesterday, but the emotions, the life in cyclic reconstruction and in the last pandemic worldwide. So the students made a link with an Instagram page in L'Aquila and analyzed one place important in the city, in the centuries, and in the reconstruction, in cyclic reconstruction in the century, Piazza Santa Maria in Paganita, with contemporary instruments of Instagram. I go to go the floor to the Professor Rizzi if she want to say something about this instrument.
No, no, I want just to leave the time to and the room. So thank you, Patrizia, for our students to show what they have done. I would just remind that there are 5 students, Antonello, Carla, Marco, Camilla, and Marta, and 3 tutors, Federico, Seren, and Laura, that work, I have to say, like only one team without any interference or just some support from us. And yeah, you will say if they have done a great job. On my opinion, they had. So please, stage is yours.
Okay, I'll be the one who starts. First, I need to ask you if you hear me. Can you hear me with the microphone?
Yes.
It's fine, okay. Because generally I don't use these headphones, but today I'm forced to. Now, if you can give me a feedback, if you see my presentation, you see my screen?
Yes. We see the third.
Yes, it's not the beginning. Sorry, a little spoiler.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start. Okay, well, we're a group of 5 students who worked on this project, and okay, we have to say that. Oh, sorry, something went wrong. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. As a team of 5 students, L'Aquila is not the city that every one of us comes from. We were not all born in here or grown up in here, so we all shared different experiences and different feelings related to the city. Consider that we are only 5 students and we all have so different perspectives of the city. We realize that dealing with the topics of cultural heritage in such a place is it's not easy at all. It means to deal with a large variety of aspects and matters that need to be observed by different points of view to be understood. It's already been said by our professors yesterday that the city has some peculiarities, history marked by different disasters, and now the moment is even more peculiar because we still haven't recovered from one disaster that we live in another one, that's the pandemic. So the case is peculiar. And yesterday, in these last days, in these lectures, we also said that cultural heritage exists for the people, and it exists if there are people who some way lead it. So that's why we chose as an inspiration the slogan that L'Aquila is everybody's memory, to inspire our work. What we wanted to do during the summer school was to develop a smart method to collect people's memories of significant sites in the urban area of the city from citizens and visitors, but also technicians, because remember that this is a city also of technicians and technical schools, so it's an important data, this as well. So that these memories could be shared within a platform and consequently enjoyed in the present and preserved for the future. So we identified 5 temporal phases that can be considered as the phases of the transformation of the city in these years. We're considering a time scale of a lifetime, basically, because we're talking about people's memory. So it's a lifetime scale. And we considered these phases for locating the memories in the transformations of the city. The phases are, as explained, the life before the main event, that was the earthquake in 2009. First, the second phase is the emergency related to the event. So that's from April 2009, and few months later, not only the weeks of the disaster, but also the few months later. Third phase is the phase after the disaster. That's the end of the emergency and the start of the reconstruction. The fourth phase is the phase during the pandemic. So it's like the last year and a half. And the post-pandemic, that's what that we can say is basically the present. After having the clear definition of these stages of the city, we drew up a vademecum that can be applied to any case for preserving the cultural heritage of a place and its population. And it's a general vademecum, and the guideline consists of 4 points, which are as following described. And it's the first is to identify the places where we want to preserve the memory. Second step is to analyze the physical and social transformations of the place in the time phases as previously described. Third step, to collect the memories you want to share. And the last step is to make memories available for any kind of user. This is just a quick overview of the project that we developed as a team of L'Aquila, but this approach is meant to be used for any site. We developed this project through an Instagram profile with also a specific case study, as Professor Montori was saying, a specific case study in the city, but more details will be shown by my colleagues about the Instagram profile and the case study. So I leave the stage to my colleagues. Yes. Do I have to end the sharing? Okay.
Okay, so now my colleagues Marta and I are going to explain our Instagram page really quickly. So this is our Instagram page. I don't know if you can see it now. I hope yes.
We can.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is our Instagram page. We decided to use this platform to reach as many people as possible. And this is how now it looks like. So if you're interested, you can follow us. And so the first step of our work was to go around the city. So we decided a tour with engineer Federico D'Ascanio, who explained us some important places and some things about the history of our city. The next step was to record our walk around the city. And for example, this is one example where we have some videos. And then after, the second phase was to show the method. So how we decide to proceed, and to define the 5 phases. And one of the most important things for us is to develop these kind of rules that everybody can follow for to apply this method. And after, we decide to define some important places that are really important for L'Aquila, so for our city. And then we focus on our case study, that is the square of Santa Maria Paganica. That it's really famous because there is this church that was destroyed after the earthquake of 2009, and now it's still like this. So people can see this church has a sign of the earthquake, so it's a kind of memory. And the interesting things is that in this square, we decided to study this square because it really shows how it changes. So before the earthquake and then after the earthquake and after the pandemic. Because thanks to this important palace building that it's Palazzo Ardinghelli, that now is the Museum of Maxi, it really shows how this space is really changed. And so we, after we decide to analyze this place, and as you see here, how it is transformed. So this is the square before the earthquake, and also here there was not anymore a square for people, but most for cars. And after, this is the square, how it looks right after the earthquake. And then during the reconstruction, it was like people couldn't go there, and it was also dangerous because there was no light during the night. And this is how the squares look during the pandemic. So there were no people outside, we were all in lockdown, and only cars were in this square. And then, thanks to the Maxi Museum and also the contribution of the University of L'Aquila that creates this platform that can be used for people, now it's really like a place where people can live it. And after
after this more spatial and physical analysis, we asked ourselves how it changed socially during those periods. So what could be the memories that people have about these places, and how can we enrich this place with memories and stories. So we try to collect people's memories related to the 5 periods that we defined. So before the earthquake, during the emergency, then during the reconstruction, during pandemic and restriction, and then in the post-pandemic, so in today's today. And we developed our idea. So the idea is to create an augmented reality system that is going to be accessible in the spaces of the city, in particular in Piazza Santa Maria Paganica, and where people can actually see those different pins that people left. They can read or add their own, and they can learn about the space through people's stories and through people memories. So the aim is really to create a container for the cultural heritage coming from the people and available for the people. Here we posted some of the memories that we collected. For example, I will show you. I don't know if you can hear it. No, we cannot.
But because you have the phone, your microphone is.
Right. I will try to. Okay.
Con grosse fascine di alberi tagliati praticamente per accendere il fuoco, e lì gli aquilani si compravano questa legna per poter accendere i loro camini oppure le stufe. Questo sì, me lo ricordo.
So this is like a memory of this old woman. She remembers that in this square they were selling trees to light the fire, so people of the city would come here to buy it. Or, for example, this picture, it's an old picture, and we can clearly see the entrance of the church in the Santa Maria Paganica. This picture from the 50s. For example, this one, this is personally mine, because I remember that when I came here to study, this square was one of the few places where you can go sit. And I remember that I was always coming home full of dust from the construction sites that were all around. And yeah, these are all the other ones that we found. So we think that people learning from these memories, from these stories, can actually learn about the space in a social and also physical space, like trying to imagine how it was, what people were doing there, and what activities were there. So yeah, that's our project idea.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You surprise us, you know, and you work hard. So I'm really proud of you. So, Simonetta, Professoressa Ciranna,
Yes.
questions.
Thank you. Also because I have to leave you, but I was really interesting also because I teach in L'Aquila, so I'm very attached to this city, but also because the subject of the memory is not easy, it's very complicated. So I think that before this, you have to think about everyone, I think, give a subject, a personal meaning at the memory. And the memory that you speak is not only the historical heritage, but you put together the historical heritage with the humanity, the social living, and I think that particularly the example of Santa Maria Paganica, that is the church important for its story, its position, but also because in this square that's near the Corso, there is concentrated more events, more different kind of building, but also now an opportunity to live in a contemporary way because the Maxi has many activity. So I think that's the important thing that you catch in this study is also the structure of the city, the important for the city of the urban structure, the net, that this net is not all the roads, are the square. I think that also Lucia, that know very well L'Aquila, can give me, can stress also this particular sense of the city. I remember one of the thing that hit me many years ago was the square of the market, where you find the people, you find the old lady, the farmer who sell their products in the center of the square, and the color. This is for me L'Aquila. The idea for the L'Aquila for me is the square of the market. They live inside this place. So thank you for your suggestion, also for the to use a modern, an actual way to involve everyone. This is, I think, this is very important.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can say more, I beg your pardon.
I'm just putting a note from Professor Gunning that is about Noi L'Aquila, that is something to collect memory. Maybe, I don't know which one raises first the hand, but Lucia, you or Pavel? I don't know. It's both. Which one would like to be? Lucia?
Maybe Professor Lucia.
Okay.
Thank you, Paola. Thank you. Very, very interesting, guys. And so 2 things. I did a project very similar to that in the past, Noi L'Aquila. I think you saw it from the presentation of my husband the other day. So learning from that, that was done with Google, and I was the single moderator of the website. So I did it for 2 years. And in a way, I have a regret that I didn't continue to do it, but it just wasn't possible with everything else. Then Google discontinued the website, but that was taken by UNESCO as an example of good practice for cultural heritage. So what you're doing is actually quite important. My only comment is that your means is very good and very contemporary, but does it reach everybody? So you could have Instagram and you could have a simple website, because I'm thinking old people, I'm thinking like my mother, for an example, are they able to connect to Instagram? Even I feel ancient with Instagram because I'm not a great Instagram user, if you see what I mean. So instead, maybe with also a link to a website where people can upload memories and say their things, you reach out to more people. Also, I wanted to say the site is very relevant. Simonetta said the market square, which is a very good point, because now we don't have that same market in that same square, and that was the life and soul of the town. But in a way, this square is becoming the life and soul of the town, because, as you know, is where the youths go in the evening for what is called the movida. The residents are not very happy. There is a lot of controversy around it, so you might get quite a lot of comments from people. And another thing that I'm saying happy people that love being there, and very angry people that don't love all these youths being there at night. The other thing that you could think of doing is, and that the administration hasn't really done, I mean, it has been done, but it hasn't been done, as usual in L'Aquila, is to have a competition of ideas, what to do with this church, what could it become. It can't be the representation of the disaster, because that square now is almost the symbol of the rebirth of the city with this new National Museum of Contemporary Art, no? So one could say, okay, let's have a competition of ideas from below, not from the administration, not from the state. What would we like this church to become? Is it to be a church? Is it to be another exposition space? Whatever. Yeah, that's all, I suppose, yeah. But very well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just a remark on it, Lucia, as you remind, your project has some support from Google and other things. They did without any support. So to run a project like this maybe could be successful despite the fact that they're not going to have any support, because maybe it's something that will grow not naturally, but they hope that they can stimulate something. But I think that is important point. Thank you so much, Pavel. Professor Kubicki.
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I have two comments. The first is according to exactly L'Aquila and your project. In my opinion, it's a very good idea that reconstruction of the city after catastrophic earthquake based on inhabitants' memory. It's this below perspective. Because, of course, we can rebuild the city, but the city without the social and cultural identity is not a city, in fact. So it's very important. Inhabitants' memories is very important for identity of cities. So my opinion is a very good good idea to that this reconstruction is based on inhabitants' memories. And my second comment is relating to the broader sense in Europe, because of the case of L'Aquila is a very specific case in Europe. It's an earthquake catastrophe, but in this time, in the time of the climate change the situation that many of catastrophic phenomena are more and more everyday experiences in European cities. It provides that the experiences of L'Aquila could be good examples for many cities in Europe in the future. So it's a very, very interesting case study how to rebuild the city and town after catastrophe. Unfortunately, the climate change will provoke such catastrophe in the future in European cities and town. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comment or suggestion that comes from? Thank you, Jana, for your for your comment. Okay, I will leave.
Just if I may, just one word.
Yes,
of
sure,
comment.
sure. Yes.
Because there are some keywords that we are using all the time, such as reinventing or reclaiming the city. Yes, and reclaiming the city is one of the topics that keeps coming back. And what I just wanted to say, also relating to the presentation of Bańska, is that in the beginning of, I mean, in 2004 or something, we started working with the heritage of post-communist times, and the main idea behind many projects was what you just did in L'Aquila, which is asking people about the meanings of these places. And what I wanted to mention is that the most important thing about all these cultural projects is that in a way, it's a sign of giving the voice back to the unmuted, to the muted or the unheard groups, and especially in the communist cities and towns, the situation was that they were not represented by themselves in any way, so that all the valorization, all the opinions, all the research was done from the outside. So the moment of change was where those cities from Nowa Huta or other places were asked, but what is this place to you? Yeah, and then where the burden of ideology, or so to say, the foundational myth was recreated or reinterpreted, the whole perspective to the heritage as a meaning-making process was changed. And I think that I agree very much that reclaiming the city through the inclusion of citizens and those who actually own the city and belong to the city is the most important thing, because this somehow changes the perspective, but it also allows us to introduce processes that you mentioned concerning L'Aquila. So, for instance, how do we conduct participative debate with people? Yeah, and obviously, when people feel that they belong and that they sort of own the city, it makes much bigger sense. This is why I think that reclaiming and reinventing, they are all processes that are deeply semantic and that are deeply connected with the identity of the city. And this is why I'm very, this is like the last thing that I want to say, is that I'm very glad that we are able here in this project, we're able to combine the perspective of urban planning and social sciences, because what we're dealing with is, in the end of the day, identity, but also the dynamics between the users of town, whatever they are, and between the management of town. And then, you know, in the end of the day, the moment of collecting the stories is basically the result of the decision that we want to listen to the voices of different users. So that's basically what makes me very satisfied with what you're saying, because we do see that collecting stories is not just for the sake of, you know, running a nice Instagram account, but it does reflect some more important and deeper process, I'd say, in the city. Yeah, thank you. That was just a comment regarding what you said in L'Aquila, but also in Bańska. And also, I'm always so interested to find out about what kind of stories are thinkable when you talk about the inheritance of medieval monuments, such as in the presentation that we heard from Bilbao, that who inherits the very distant heritage of medieval churches and chapels and so on. Yeah, thank you.
Patrizia, sorry, there is just one question from Patrizia, and probably I will leave Lucia again to you the conclusion. Patrizia, please.
Yes, only one simple reflection about the presentation, because it's very interesting. We ask to the student, all the students, to reflect about worldwide pandemic, and the guys made presentations about the emotions in cultural heritage. Students by Cracovia too, for example, tell us about the emotions, the emotions of individual person. For example, the music playing the square by Philip, for example. And it is very interesting, and in a reflection for architects, for engineers that must made a new shape of buildings and city is very important, because the emotions are the link between buildings and the life in the city. So it's very interesting that in Cracovia, in Basca, in L'Aquila, the emotions is the link between the experience in the city and in cultural heritage. And is an important thing to reflect about this question. I think only a reflection for us, for architects.
Okay, I think that that it was, I mean, the work done, if there are no other questions, was really good. I think that, as I told to the students here, it came to my mind that there is, I read mystery, and there is a mystery by Margaret Doody that is using Aristotle as a detective. And she met in a novel, she met Dinocrates, that is the architect of Alexandria, and asked him, what is the meaning of build a city? And he said, oh, do you know, everybody is thinking about monuments and big, and he was the architect of Alexandria. But what we need are just sewage system and water pipes. And then Aristotle's answer was yes, but what we need is people. Without people, there are no cities at all. So this is, I think, is important, and is also the starting point from the work of the students. So I would like to thank, by the way, Professor Ganni that just left because he's in travel. She does stop to enter, but she has to leave. And Professor Tirana, I know that she will leave as soon, unfortunately, but I would like to thank deeply my colleagues. But as often I said, I always learn from the students, not only from my students, but from all the students of the school. So thank you very much. It was a great lesson for me. Lucia, I leave to the coordinator, Professor Pescasca.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Paola. Thank you, L'Aquila team. Thank you for all your comments and for the reflections, the final reflections. And before we close everything, I would like to ask Professor Zdzisław Mak from the Jagiellonian University to just say, because he started with the opening lecture, and I would like to ask him just to close everything with some final words. So just if I may ask you just for a brief conclusion after what we've done, and you've been involved also in one of our tours during the summer school, and maybe you could just relate to some issues that were that were mentioned in the beginning of the of our summer school, please.
Well, I'm not sure whether I should be doing this in sense of, I'm not, I haven't been involved in this very systematic way as most of you in this endeavors, in this project. However, having listened to lectures and also today's presentations, I have a couple of thoughts which perhaps are not original, but I couldn't resist sharing them. Well, one thing is that it just so happened, perhaps without any being expected, that one of the leading themes of the whole, I would say, comparative analysis and searching for meaning in all these cities involved, that we are doing it at a time which is marked by traumatic experience. We're talking about how to reconstruct identity and memory after a disaster, like an earthquake. We are also talking all the time about the effects of the pandemic, yes, which of course had a very strong effect on how our cities function. And of course, this is something which has also very far-reaching consequences on memory and identity. How do we remember? I mean, I've been thinking many times, not only in the context of any particular city, but in general, cities which went through a disastrous experience, either the war destruction or earthquake or similar tragedies, how to rebuild identity, but also how to reconstruct memory, how to transmit memory to next generation and further generations, and how to symbolically encode the meaning, which, especially if you are building, like Warsaw, for instance, was built from scratch almost, large parts of it. What to do with it? Shall we try to rebuild the city as it was, or shall we do something different? I mean, you remember there was this kind of discussion also regarding the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris after the fire. Should it be reconstructed exactly as it was, or should we take this opportunity to go beyond this, as it happened many times in the past, that when medieval churches collapsed, of course, they didn't reconstruct it as they were, but they went on. One can say they needed to do it. That was the only way they could do it, perhaps, but also they took this opportunity to do something different. This is a great dilemma of our times, of us who are so very much interested in the past and very much we care for the past, but we also want to develop. Another thing which I also, the thought which I had, especially this morning when the students were talking about their own impressions, their own research, their own feelings, was that we talk and think a lot about tourism. It's very important, of course, for our cities. And of course, the experience like the pandemics changed the situation. We all hope the tourists would come back, but it was a problem. Yes, that's true, but I couldn't stop thinking about this, what I've observed many times in historic cities, a certain tension between the city being a tourist attraction and city being a living space and a symbolic space for the local people. And of course, the local people create enclaves, the local people create boundaries. I saw it in Venice, I saw it in Krakow, I saw it in, I don't know, Nicosia, in Malta, in lots of places which are as a whole considered to be tourist attractions. And then people want to have a space for themselves. So the thing is, okay, so what then? what now when the pandemic stopped tourism for a while? Are we enjoying it, or are we desperate about it, especially because the financial losses? And how do we respond to this? And of course, thinking about Krakow, but of course not only Krakow. Of course, all our cities are academic cities. The students were also absent from. Not only tourists. The students didn't come. In Krakow, it was a very serious issue. Economically, of course, because lots of people lived on the income from the rent, but also a quarter of the city population were students, and now they're all gone. So the feeling of emptiness was also because of that. Not only students, but you have tourists, but you have an academic city which has no students all of a sudden. It may seem to be a small issue, but I think it's also worth thinking. The last remark is that in a strange sort of way, you may think that this curious and in many ways tragic experience of pandemic also added another dimension to visiting places, which perhaps was not necessarily expected. I remember when Lucia and I, we had an opportunity to be in Paris at the beginning of December, last December, and Paris was empty, completely, and everything was closed. We knew Paris before relatively well, so we didn't regret the fact that all the museums were closed. But it was so strange and also so very pleasant experience to explore the city, which we know from being packed with people, was empty, and all the streets and all this, Montmartre or Saint Germain or Quartier Latin, whatever it was speaking very different language to us. The message was very different because it was no longer a busy tourist place. It was a touristic place. It was an empty space of a historic place which we loved very much, but which we never saw in that condition. So thinking about emptiness and thinking about the fact that people didn't come also has this paradoxically, like in our studies on society and culture, we have many paradoxes. It was also a kind of paradoxical experience. So that's what I thought. Well, it's not an important contribution, I'm sure, but I couldn't resist expressing these thoughts. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I think it was a great experience. The whole. I mean, especially at least for me, the whole summer school. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now this is the moment for closing remarks and for closing all the summer school. I must say that again. I would like to ask each of the local coordinators just to say some closing words for just to close the event, and I would like to ask also Paweł, because I know that you'd be leaving very soon, and also Paola, my request to you would be also, could you please make sort of final comment for the session that you've for all the sessions that you've had on gaming simulation, because I think that it was very interesting and it was very useful for many of us to learn about how the gaming simulation can be carried out, but also in a very general perspective. We can see it very clearly that what we are dealing with in terms of managing the city is one of the problems of including different voices and in a way managing diversity of needs, expectations and possibilities. And I would like to ask you, Paola, to just make if you might, to make a brief comment about how you think that what you have proposed may act in terms of supporting the public debate, if this is the case, because this is what we definitely had a feeling that all the gaming simulation has a great potential. So in terms of running the participative debates, it makes sense to include some forms of it. And then we're very grateful for you to have us introduced to the topic. But then if you could just relate to your experiences with this time, and then I would like to ask also other colleagues just to say just a closing sentence or two so that we could finish off and then continue exploring cities on our own right after that. Paula, could you please share your reflection about it all, please?
Unfortunately, we couldn't accomplish, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
No,
yes, I can. Yes,
okay.
yes, it's okay.
Yes. Unfortunately, we couldn't accomplish with the task that we assigned to ourselves, that was to design a gaming simulation with the students. So unfortunately, we had a more theoretical introduction, description, some case studies. What I can underline is that, again, the value of a gaming simulation as a tool is to build something that, utopia or not, is a protected world, a world where the conflicts and comparisons and confrontation can be run without blood. Let me say that. So it's a world where we can also make mistakes, we can make errors, but we can learn from our errors. And just to leave you with this, we designed a gaming simulation about transformation of the city according with the mass tourism. I explained Venice, quite complicated, but we designed a really simple one that I played several times, where people has a board and they are tourists and they want just to do things. But then there are two groups in two different rooms. Each of them are tourists in a place. But then at the end of the game, the tourists come back, they exchange, and they found their city that was exploited by the tourists. So for instance, the lost cultural heritage, they found some nature that is destroyed, and then they have to deal with it and discuss, okay, what is the meaning to drag in or to arise as a, let's say, leading sector, for instance, of development? Just quantity of people coming and using, because they are users, it uses this place. So this is where, let's say, in cultural heritage, just on one of the many examples where gaming simulation can be used in cultural heritage. But I would like to thank you all for your question and supporting me, even if I didn't play with you games, in keeping on with my lectures. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Paula. I still hope we'll have a chance to play in real life and in real time. You know, I'm not sure which city will choose to be the meeting point of ours, but thanks a lot, and thank you, Aquila team, for doing all the work. And because this is the moment where we say goodbyes and everyone says some closing remarks. So if this is for everyone, I would like to, if for the students also and for other participants, if you would like to leave a very informal comment, please be free to do it on the chat section so that we can see whether maybe there was something that you got inspired with, or something that you discovered, something that you just found out, about yourself maybe, or about your city. Do not hesitate to leave your comment in the chat section. And now, Pavel, before you leave, would you like just to leave a closing comment from your side?
Yes, and then just a very short comment. I would like to congratulate all of the student teams for very interesting presentation. We learn 4 case studies, very different but very interesting. So I'm very glad to hear this presentation. It's just my short comments. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Patricia, would you like to add a word to what has been said, please?
Yes, I want to made a short comment about the effort of all the students to made a good work in this way, particular way, without interaction between young people. That is an important thing for young. So I want to make a compliments to the student for all the work that they made. And a reflection about this link between people in the world, that is the emotions that the students in a separately way we tell us. So the link is perhaps the emotions and not only the places that are different with different problem, different history, but the emotions of the persons are the link between people in the world. So I want to thank all my colleagues and the students for this particular effort in this way, and I hope in the future we can make another experience in presence with relationship, personal relationship between us, and for work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. And I couldn't agree more that the presence of emotions was also one of the very visible added values of our meeting, especially in the post-pandemic or pandemic times, in fact, because all of us have experienced the transformation from our lives before that, and we all know that we can't come back to those lives in the way that we had left them. So I think this is really the fascinating moment, despite the fact that it might have been quite a traumatic experience for the cities, but also for many of us. Okay, thank you very much, Patricia, and I would like to express my gratitude also to you for organizing the students in such a great way, and for all the L'Aquila team for keeping in touch with all the experts and for keeping up with the initiative to be with us. Okay, thanks a lot. Joanna, a word from you, please.
Oh, I just want to say thank you very much. It was my first experience coordinating a local team in a summer school, and was great for me. A great experience, and I must say that we are not so different. We have a lot in common in heritage, cultural heritage issues, and all the topics that we saw on the lectures, and well, the presence would be something different, I guess. Well, maybe in a couple of months we can do it. And I want to say thank you very much for all the coordinators, and Lucia for your hard working, and for our student, Sophia, thank you very much for your presence. And thank you very much for all the students. What's very interesting today, the presentations were like great. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Joanna. I hope at some point we'll be able to discover all our cities, of which we know so much at the moment, personally. So, okay, thanks a lot, Joanna. And then Jana, Viera, would you like to add a closing word, please?
So, yeah, under my name and, of course, under the name of Viera, I will just say that everything has been said, so it's not easy to close. So I just hope that we fulfill somehow the expectations of students, because the students are the most important for the summer school. And of course, I hope that we fulfill a little bit expectations of our colleagues, and we now know more about what we are doing, and we can continue in future in other projects. So I hope that this summer school can open the doors for future projects. So that may be all from my side, because everything has been said. So thank you all for being here with us during this week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like to express also my own.
Yes, please.
I would like to express just very short my own idea as well. Thank you to everyone, but also I would like to continue with any projects concerning saving heritage as such. As a colleague of mine recently said, there are cities and very well-known monuments, historical places. They somehow, in the city, there are plenty of inhabitants, and somehow they could be found people and projects to protect them. But in Slovakia and also in our region, there are abandoned places, villages. They deserve to find some nice ideas how to protect the almost forgotten, almost abandoned places. And I see Paula's games as an opportunity to collect from the people the ideas what to do with the almost forgotten heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Viera. And now, because this is already 11:15, I think we are coming close to the end of our summer school. I wouldn't like to be exclusive though, so I would like to ask if there's anyone who would like to share. This is the question for all participants. If there's anyone who would like to share something or make a comment or just be present by expressing something, I think I would like to say it very clearly that I'm very grateful for your participation. I know that the time was not very easy. I know it's very hot and we're on holidays in a way. So what I would like to say, like sort of in a way of closing everything, is that it happens today quite accidentally that today we are in Kraków, in our city, we are celebrating a 500th anniversary of installation of the most famous bell of Poland on one of our cathedral towers. And today at 9 we will all hear the sound of this bell, and I think it's a great. I'm sure it's going to be streamlined on the internet. But anyway, the idea is that this ring, the ring, will sound, and then all the bells of the city will answer with the use of their own sounds. And I think it's a great moment for the cities, for the historical city, but not only that. We really may see the great dynamics between the long duration of the city, with the long history, and with the continuation, with the historical many centuries of continuation of history of our cities, and the response. And my feeling is that what we've done so far during the summer school, and what most of you have done basically, was that we were trying to find the connections, and we were trying to focus on the dynamics between the constructed past and the present. But also what made me feel quite secure as a citizen, as an inhabitant of a historical city, is that very often the voices and the needs and expectations of inhabitants were also considered in this puzzle that we have that's the identity and the uniqueness of all these places is actually spanned between the past, the present, the future, and so on. However serious it sounds, I hope that we have all enjoyed exploring the city. And again, I would like to express my thanks to everyone involved. This summer school has been organized within a bigger project that, among others, aimed at producing a manual and a curriculum for teaching about cities as learning and teaching platforms. So we do value all of your responses and all of your inputs, because this is what we need exactly to enrich the curriculum, as well as the manual that's going to be one of the results for the project. So thank you again. If any of you would like to leave a comment in the chat section, please go ahead. Already, I have to say that I will not leave you ultimately, because I will come back to you with evaluations, and I will try to get some feedback from you about maybe not only about the organization, but also about what you've been able to discover and what you've been able to get inspired with, and so on. So basically, this is it. This is the moment. If there is no one else to say the last goodbye and the last farewell, I should. Well, the only thing that comes to my mind for the end is like this famous British song that we'll meet again, and I do hope that we'll meet in a reality that has been undergoing basic transformations for the last a year and a half. However, I do hope that we've learned a lot, and that I hope that you have enjoyed exploring new aspects and new perspectives of everything that you've done. So thank you again. I will remain in touch with you, if I may, and hope to be able to work with you in the future. All the files will be stored, and you will get a link to all the to the files section and to the website where everything will be stored. I will ask everyone to email me any of the presentations or texts or anything that you've worked upon. But I think I will come back to you not sooner than in 10 days. So for today, this is it. Thank you very much. Thank you, students. Thank you, experts. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for being together here. And I hope we'll meet in reality pretty soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
For the Italian team, we are going to meet in our team.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.